Hi guys, it's Tracy Newman here from the Navigators Tarot, here to do a Divine Masculine reading. Yeah, so the energies at the moment are weird, but anyway, let's see how we're going this week with the masculine. The feminine reading and the general reading have been they're going through massive transformational energies. So I would imagine that it's the same for the masculine at the moment. Yeah, it's a strange time on the earth. Very transformative. Wow. Wow. I feel like the masculine is actually also going through a dissolution process. It's almost like a Kundalini awakening. It's like burning off, it's like fire. I feel like the masculine has really gone through a time of it recently where there's been a lot of anxiety. This is part of the dissemination process that we all must go through. But it's like the feminine, even though she's been leading the way, she's had years and years of this Kundalini awakening process, whereas the masculine is pretty much been thrown into a pit of hellfire and had to really transform very quickly. And so it's been a bit of a process for him. And yeah, so going through a massive amount of anxiety, probably almost near-death experiences, and feeling like he has pretty much been burnt from the inside out. But that is burning off old energies that need to be removed. So any form of darkness that he has been living in is now being transformed. There seems to now be a sense of the masculine now beginning to look at the world in a completely different way, in a completely innocent way. It's sort of like a rebirth in a way of looking at, it's like he's come onto this new earth, and it's like all of his senses are now completely wired, and in seeing colors differently, seeing everything differently in a new, more innocent way. It's an amazing sort of experience that he is now going through. Yeah, so we'll just do some more cards and see what else I'm picking up. That's really interesting. So basically burning off the dross, burning off those old energies and old programs and old wounding that has kept him bound to these older structures. He realizes he's actually, I don't know whether it's himself or the energies that have basically pushed him to the fore and just gone, you have to change. You basically have no choice now. You've just got to. And it's like a huge initiation process where it's like he's been completely burnt from everything from the inside out, and transforming from the ashes. It's like a phoenix rising from the ashes in a way. Also too, there seems to be like, oh, okay, yes, right. So the difference between the masculine and the feminine energies is that the feminine is very honed in and very clued in to listening to every cell in her body, emotions and everything else, because her body is her cellular structure is how she transmits and transmutes energy. So she's able to listen and understand it and work from there very quickly. Whereas the masculine has a different process where it's all very It's all been very intellectual and mental in how he processes information. And so from that aspect, he's always made choices, whereas the feminine relies on her body and spirit and all that is, because she's so connected in all those ways, that she's able to move in this flowing energy with how the earth and also to her cells, God, have directed her, and she moves from that place. That's how the feminine energies, the divine feminine energies, work. But the masculine has always gone intellectually by choice. And so he hasn't been used to going within, asking his body and moving and allowing his body to move him in a way, in a spiritual way, to where it is that he needs to go. He's used his body in a physical way, but usually his choices have come from an intellectual standpoint. So now it's like, to balance out those energies, he's now beginning to understand through this burning off period, this burning off stage, and this dissemination process of every cell in his body. He's now starting, he hasn't yet, but it's going to start moving into those energies where he'll have a greater sense of being at one with all that is, and allow those other energies to come through, allow God, allow Spirit to come through, and he will then move from those energies instead of the intellectual processing of choice. So choice is something that is quite 3D focused, very masculine focused, but also very intellectually focused. And in the past, it's not always led him to the right places, because he has not actually been able to access other parts of himself, his emotional body, and the rest of him being able to process those parts of himself, his spiritual body, being able to process and using all of those. He's only ever used that one process, which is the intellectual process. But now he's being asked to go within, to find all those parts of himself and move from there, move from spirit, move from God. And so in a way, it's not about choice. It's about moving from being all at one with all that is and moving from there. So he's really beginning to learn a new way of existing in the world, and a new way of being in the world. So he's starting to use those energies. Even he's very grounded at the moment still, though. Even though all this dissemination process is happening, he still is remaining quite grounded in the form of, he's really starting to come into Buddhahood, the Christ-like energies, Buddha, Christ, those sorts of energies. But he's doing it through meditation, through grounding meditation. And he's now learning to allow what is coming to him. Whereas once upon a time, it was all fear. It was all too frightening to really go through, to look at his emotions, to look at his emotional body, his cellular structure, and how his body spoke to him in a spiritual sense more than the intellectual. And it was something quite alien to him. But now he's beginning to move into those energies of being able to do that and to access those parts of himself he's never been able to access before because of fear. But now, of course, he's moving away from fear into a completely new era of unconditional love for himself and others, going through a massive death and rebirth process, leaving all of this behind, darkness, destruction, the old world process of our death culture. He's now leaving that behind and moving into this beautiful chrysalis type form of rebirth. It's very, very similar to what the feminine is going through. It's extreme transformation for the masculine, extreme. And he's been fast-tracked. So he's really having to go through it. But it's his only way of removing fear is to go through the burning process. And the Kundalini process, which is not altogether blissful. Change comes in the form of being burnt in the hellfire pit, pretty much. So there. Now, once upon a time, I would have looked at that and said he had a choice which way he was going, but now I don't see that. Now I feel he understands that light and love are a part of himself, and there is no other choice but to follow that, because he's recognized that that's who he is and always was. And so there is no real other choice than to follow that part of, that hidden part of himself that he always was, but didn't know. Okay, so interesting stuff for the masculine once again. Going through a massive change. Oh, massive. It's great. So fantastic to see. So yes, once again, we have illuminate the shadow. But I look at this and see the fire there that is burning. The shadow must come into light, it must come into being, and it must be transmuted and transformed into love and light. Through healing work and through releasing any old programming that no longer fits with the person who he is now starting to become. The spirit messages, understanding that spirit is a part of himself and a part of all that is. And when he's connected to spirit, he's connected to himself, and vice versa. Open intuition. Let's go within to the heart center to seek clarification. Okay. Interesting times we are living in. See you soon.